Good morning. After many technical difficulties, I finally managed to crack the problem and get through to you. So, today you're starting with the spring-themed linear sequences. You're looking at exchanging the picture for a number. So in this case, obviously, the lamb is 5, the butterfly 7, and the egg 9. You need to work out what happens to the number as it moves across. So what is happening to it? In this case, we can see that 2 is being added to it. So we can then work out what the following numbers would be in the sequence. As algebraic geniuses, you need to express it as using the nth term. So the n stands for number, any number. So imagine the nth term was this butterfly here. We would look at writing, in this case, 7 add 2. But if we're talking about any number, and any number standing for being represented by the letter n, we would put n plus 2. Remember, if the sequence requires you to multiply, you put the number that is being multiplied next to the letter, but before it. So if it were that you needed to multiply the number each time by 2, you would write 2n. So I think you'll be able to work that out. Now, the next one is something that we haven't looked at before, and it's quite an interesting way of representing data, is to use a pie chart. We've looked at graphs, line and bar charts. This is another way of representing data. So we've got all this data here, all these objects, and you'll need to find out the frequency of each of them, so how often they occur. In this table here, you're required to find the frequency of each item. So if you were looking at the frequency of the birds, how many times do the birds occur in this box here? Well, what is the frequency of them? So you count them. Let's say we've counted 7. My advice to you is to strike through them each time you've counted them so you don't double count. So let's say this frequency is 7. There are 7 birds. I would write the number 7 in the box underneath where it says frequency. And I'd do the same for the bunnies, the daffodils and the lambs. Now we need to move on to looking at the fraction. So how many out of all of the objects are birds? Well, we've said 7. It's not 7, but let's go with 7. Now, this is where we need to know what the total number of objects are. So what you can do is you can count them all here, and then you can check that number by adding together the frequency, the number of each item in that box. Now let's say we've counted 7 birds, and let's say there are 14 objects. There aren't, but let's say there are. So out of 14 objects, there are 7 birds. So as a fraction, that would be, I would write that as 7 over 14. 7 with the line, that means divide, and then 14. So 7 is my numerator, and 14 is my denominator. So now I've got 7/14. I know I can simplify that. So you can either divide it by 2 or 3, or in this case, we know that there are 2 lots of 7 and 14, so it would be half, which is 1 over 2. So the next thing we need to think about, once we've simplified all of our fractions of our birds, bunnies, daffodils and lambs, is we need to think about how many segments that would represent in the pie. So here's our pie. Imagine it's a big delicious pie that's going to be chopped up and divided by different people. Each segment, so each chop here, each slice, represents a number of objects. Now here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 segments in the pie, and what you need to do is, working with the numbers that you've got in this fraction, I would be trying to work with twelfths, if that would make things easier for me. You need to work out how many objects are represented by one slice of the pie. So for instance, we've got 12 slices. Imagine there was a total of 12 objects, and 3 of those objects were daffodils. I would colour in 3 slices of the pie to show that there are 3 out of 12 are daffodils. And then let's say there are 4 bunnies, so then I'd colour in 4. In this case, each one is representing one object. But you might have a situation where each slice represents 2 objects. So if you only have one, you would just colour in half of a slice. And obviously if you have two, you'd colour in two. And you need to work out how many objects each of these slices represent based on the numbers that we're working with here. Slightly tricky for some of you. If you're not sure, you can message one of your teachers, or you can have a little look on BBC Bitesize to see how pie charts work. You can have a look at the answer sheets and see what you've got in comparison to what the answer sheet is and work backwards from there. Thank you to those of you who've been sending me through your stories about the Ascent. I have loved reading them and welcome any messages with those examples so that I can give you some feedback. Have a good day. Bye.